Door-to-door marketing has commenced. That's the theme for this week. Hello, you're watching the development vlog for Shokken, a restaurant waitlist management tool that has grown to be more than just a simple waitlist, more on that later, that is currently available on Google Play Store and iOS App Store. This is Bill from Shokken, and this is week 80 of development. The current status, as I just mentioned, the app is ready and available for download for everybody in the United States on Android and iOS. You can go ahead and do that right now. The download button is in the description. The link is in the description. This week, I've started actually going to restaurants marketing. I'm blessed to be in a city with very many successful restaurants that have very long waits, and a lot of them either don't have the correct technology to help them with the wait lists, or they just not very happy with the current system that they have. So I went to Google Maps, identified half a dozen, about seven or eight restaurants that have this long wait in their review complaints, and I targeted them. Wednesday, yesterday, drove down to Chinatown, which is a place with a lot of the very successful restaurants, very busy restaurants. A side note, it's quite interesting. In Vegas, the city I'm in, you have very popular restaurants on the strip, and of course these are not really my targets because they either are too big and their decision makers move too slowly, or they already have very entrenched data software providers that I can't unseat, right? That's one thing. And the other thing is that there's a lot of sort of a boutique, smaller restaurants that are either run by some sort of family members or holding companies that are not terribly large. And then these places typically have a lot of different problems that they're trying to solve. Of course, they're successful businesses, but they're restaurateurs first and sort of technologists third or fourth. And that's the group that I'm targeting. That's why Chinatown is a great place for those things. And when I say Chinatown, I don't mean, of course, only Chinese food. There's a lot of all sorts of different restaurants there. Anyways, I identified 7 or 8. With my little clipboard and all the marketing materials that are printed, I'm going to share the video right here. I'll probably cut in. You'll see what's going on. And my spiel that I practiced last week, and I just went door to door. What's the worst that can happen? Them telling me off. So it's an interesting experience because, number one, it's the very first time I have ever done door-to-door salespeople thing, right? I don't have salesperson background, and did a lot of practice in front of the camera at home. Of course, there's a lot of trepidation because this is new territory. You don't really have a lot of validation from other people telling you you're doing a good job. Anyways, interesting experience. I was told by people online, you gotta smile, you need to appear friendly, you need to appear likable. That's the whole point of this thing, which is people are not necessarily just buying your product, they're buying you. And trying to convince them that you are a nice and reliable person is far more important in the first couple of minutes of interaction than you trying to sell the product. Anyway, so there's a lot of people skill in there, and interesting results. So I did manage to visit 5 out of the 7 or 8, and the 7 or 8, the 2 or 3 restaurants weren't actually open during that period of time, which is interesting because Google Maps showed that they were open. This sort of tells you, this is another hint that they're not really updating their online presence. Their information is not exactly synced up, but they're really popular places. In any case, I visited 5 and 6. I visited 6. Among the 6, one of them just straight up rejected me. There was a little bit of a language barrier. I was failing to communicate to them the intention of my visit, and I think they immediately thought I was a solar panel salesperson. That didn't work, and they told me to go away. And of course, that's their restaurant, their property. I respected them, and I struck them off my sheet. 3 locations, I didn't manage to run into managers. And of course, those things are decided by managers, not your typical front of house staff. They can vouch for you, but they're from the 3 folks that I spoke to, they all preferred that I defer the conversation to the manager. So okay, I'll go back. And the two places that I did manage to speak to the managers, I got very interesting responses. So the first one was an ethnic location serving largely ethnic food. Now, the interesting thing is, you don't really know the clientele of the restaurant until you talk to the proprietor. So what this person told me was that, I showed her the app, and she's actually quite impressed, and she was very excited about the using this app, and she thought that the interface and everything was very slick. I think she liked it. A problem is, the app, it shows a sign, right, that instructs people to scan the QR code to join the waitlist. Problem is that sign is in English, and according to this person, that's okay for the vast majority of their guests, but a subset of their guests are just not. They need translation, right? They need their native language. So that surfaced the very first real sort of product change that I need to make to this app, which is I need to, at least the guest-facing front, it needs to have multi-language support. So that's very valuable feedback. And the second thing, of course, I understood from this person is that they, despite the fact that there are a lot of Google reviews complain about the long wait, and despite the fact that they have a wait list up front, like a pen and paper wait list, she was telling me that they don't really have a wait problem until winter time, which is interesting because, we're in the middle of summer. I'm visiting them in the middle of summer. I saw many recent reviews complaining about the wait at the door, and then the evidence of waitlist sheet like at the door, and I was like, I didn't press, and there was also a little bit of a sort of a language barrier with her. We couldn't freely communicate with each other, so that was interesting. But like, in my mind, there's no reason for her to lie. She looked sincere. She looked like she had a problem that she wanted to solve, and I just showed up with a potential solution for that. In any case, so what we had agreed was that I'm going to put that feature in and then go back and visit her again and then train her to use the app. And that's that particular restaurant. So I'd say that that's not exactly a success, but I did get a signal in terms of what I need to do with the app. All right, that's far more valuable to me than me sitting at home thinking about what I should do to the app, what all the features and feature improvements and whatnot. The funny thing is, like, a lot of the effort that I put in to make it sort of really slick and sort of user friendly, she didn't really care for them. Well, not care for them. It didn't appear to be as important to her as they were to me when I was implementing them. So, what people say about go talk to your users, I think it's quite, it's hard. But it's also true, and she revealed a big gap that I didn't even think about. Languages. Okay, so that's that restaurant. And then another restaurant that I went to, I had to actually return to that restaurant a bit later to talk to the manager. The manager didn't come in until 4 or 5, I think. Very friendly manager, spoke to me for about like 15 to 20 minutes. I really appreciated his time. He was actually busy. He was preparing for that night's rush. This place would have been a very good target simply because it's a very successful restaurant, and the wait is like out the door every night. Like, that was the ideal use case for this for my app. The two parts that are unfortunate about this is, number one, they already have a waitlist system in line. They have an ongoing vendor relationship. So that was difficult to unseat. Sure, I can compete on features. I can compete on perhaps pricing. But, again, this is a sort of a people relationship type of situation. So it's difficult to unseat whatever it's already in place. That's number one. Number two, they have a very particular mental model with regards to how they want to deal with the waitlist situation. Now, because this place, from my understanding, so I thought about this, because this place has been busy for a long time, they've run into this kind of a guest satisfaction waitlist issue for a long time. They have come up with a way to deal with the issue. Whether or not this way is optimal, it's up for discussion, of course. But that's the way that they have adopted, and that's the way that they're comfortable with now. And if you run a very busy restaurant, you've got 10,000 things to think about, right? And changing the way that you're doing something that you have established for a long time, we're not good friends. All right, I showed up the first time. I don't think that's the top of his priority. So, and I think this revealed to me another situation with this particular type of establishments is that perhaps cracking this particular restaurant requires that I think a lot about how to solve their problem, which might steer me away from making a generic app that's usable by 95% of the restaurants to a specialized app making service. And that's not where I want to go, right? So I was trying to sort of lean into the complaints that he had and trying to sort of mold the discussion of my product to fit the complaints that he had. He didn't buy it, and it's very clear to me that he was being very strategic and he's being very nice about we have our way of doing this, and I appreciate you coming here, but this is really not our thing. So eventually, what I decided to do, I decided to leave my deck of marketing materials with them, with my contact information, and I probably will follow up at some point down the line, but probably not immediately, because if they wanted to talk to me, they can talk to me. And we'll go from there. And perhaps after I pick up some references, some proof, social proof, I can reapproach them again and see if they have changed their mind. Perhaps repeated exposure, right? In any case, that's that particular restaurant. And the last noteworthy restaurant is a very successful franchised location. And I visited their original location. That's where the success started. They are already using Yelp Waitlist. So as soon as I entered, they have this kiosk where you can go up to that kiosk and put in your information, your phone number to join a waitlist. And this place definitively have a waitlist issue as well. So I didn't manage to speak to the manager there because, again, the managers are usually not there. That's very interesting. I thought that the managers would typically be there between 2 or 3 in the afternoons of Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursdays, and then do administrative stuff when it's not really busy. Turns out, no, the managers are there when it starts getting busy. So that's another hurdle, I suppose, which is getting the manager's attention when the managers are knee deep in problems to solve in the restaurant. In any case, so I didn't run into the manager. Did speak to one of the wait staff members, and turns out that they're pretty happy with the current situations. I suspect that this location probably would have a similar situation as the previous one that I discussed, a very successful one that I discussed, in that they already have a system that works. Why would they be interested in mine, even if I can compete on pricing or features or other things, right? So that might not be something that I would target. So I think that this week is quite informative for me in that, number one, I understood that, particularly for the local market, I need to put in multi-language support because a lot of the very popular restaurants have visitors from all over the world, and language is an important part of it. Number two, I should perhaps tailor my targeting strategy to restaurants that are really good at making food and catering to the customers, but somehow are in the backwaters in terms of technology, right? They haven't thought about using a waitlist system, like the very first restaurant that I talked about, and perhaps I can run into some more. The challenge with that is of course, it's difficult to know until you step your foot into the restaurant whether or not they already have an existing system. And I don't know if there are signals that I can find very easily on Google Maps to see whether or not sure, I can search the wait complaint in the reviews, but people are not going to describe the waitlist systems that they use. So I can't really get a signal in terms of whether or not this place is a good target. So I think that probably just means that I'm just going to have to be patient and go door to door until the product starts picking up in terms of users. And this likely means that for I'm guessing for every 5 or 10 rejections, I'd be looking at maybe 1 acceptance. But that's the way it works, right? It's a spray and pray situation. I want the volume, and unfortunately, during the bootstrap phase of this product launch, I not only do I not have the throughput, it's just me doing this, and I can't possibly visit all the restaurants in the valley. And number 2, it's a low hit rate situation. So not only do you have a low throughput, you also have a low hit rate. So, but you're gonna have to do, like, there's no other way. I can't afford gigantic advertisement campaigns like a lot of other, venture capital backed funds and stuff. I haven't proven anything yet. Everything that I've done so far is essentially a hobby project that I'm doing in my office. This hasn't generated value, hasn't proven anything yet. And this is the most difficult part, right? Which is to face the market, trying to show the value of my product and convince people to sign up. So that's it. Yeah, that's it for this week. And the other thing I mentioned earlier is that there's some feature creep in the app, in that it is true when people say that the most difficult part about making an app is not the making part, but the selling part. And the making part is actually once you get used to the loop of implementing features and making the app, building things in the app, it becomes sort of very therapeutic. It's something that you enjoy doing. You can sort of lose yourself in the trance. If you're an employee, if you're a software engineer of a company, and you're tasked to do this day in and day out, as I was before, it's a comfortable place to be. You don't really have to think about it too much. But of course, if you're trying to sell the app that you're building, the selling part becomes quite a bit more important. And from what I discovered is that because the building part is so therapeutic, you find yourself in a trap of wanting to do it more, and you justify the time spent on that by convincing yourself that, oh, it's important that this app needs this feature. And I find myself doing that too. Yesterday, I went down to Chinatown to do marketing, and that's actually quite exhausting. Not only because it's physically exhausting, it's 43 degrees Celsius outside. It's hot. This is a hot place to be. And even walking from place to place, I parked my car in the parking lot, and walking from place to place, sweating like a pig, and I downed 2 bottles of electrolyte drinks, and then still finding myself not really peeing correctly because I was getting dehydrated and everything. It wasn't a very comfortable experience. And of course, the psychological part of it is quite weighty as well, because like, it's not everybody who you talk to is like, oh yeah, sign us up, yes, we'll give you money. No, it's a lot of rejections, and it's a lot of emotional uncertainty, and these things sort of push you towards refinding the comfort of sitting in front of GitHub and your IDE, your development environment, and try to put more features in the app and think, oh, that's the way that you stick your head in the sand and not actually confront the the brutal reality of selling your app. So as a result, there has been some feature creep in the app, which I'm still pretty proud that these features went in. So number 1, you can show your menus and not just a waitlist, because it's a short gap to, like, going from showing a waitlist to showing the menu is really not that much. You can upload pictures of your menu, and such that my app can parse the menus for you, so you don't have to put in the menu manually yourself. That's another feature. You can print those QR codes to put it in front of your restaurant as opposed to using a tablet or a phone to display the QR code, and that's another feature that went in. So more features are coming up, and I'm certain that I will continue to put those features in. Those features either my marketing efforts have revealed to me that are important to put in, for instance, the language features, but also things that exist in my head that I think are important for this app. In any case, it still would be very interesting to see them come alive in the app. In any case, so that's the situation. This week was mostly prepping the marketing effort and actually doing the marketing effort, and then now I'm working on putting in the language support. Next week, same thing. I'm probably going to do another round of door-to-door situation after I identify a new set of restaurants, either Tuesday or Wednesday. And then we'll see what happens Tuesday, Wednesday, and then Friday, because there is a restaurant whose manager only comes in on Fridays, who I wish to meet. In any case, that's it for this week. I will see you next week.